Yep, you're good.
Thank you. Okay, so I would like to call the Narragansett Regional Agreement Amendment Committee to order. It is 5:09 on July 26th, 2021. So that is good. So the first thing is we're going to start with the approval of minutes, and I believe we have 2 sets of minutes tonight to approve. I hope that they were sent out earlier, so I hope that everybody had a chance to at least look at them. And I will ask if there were any questions or comments before. Actually, I will start with the minutes of June 7th and ask if there were any questions or comments before I ask for a motion to approve. With nothing seen, I will looking for a motion to approve the meeting minutes of June 7th, 2021.
So moved.
And can I get a second on that?
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Actually, I just got to update. Okay. So with that, I will do a roll call. So Sheila, I will start with you.
Yes.
Oh, what am I missing? Tim?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Thank you. Christine?
Yes.
Gerhard?
Abstain because I wasn't there.
Okay, all right. Linda? Did I see Linda is not here?
No.
Okay. Hank, I did see Hank,
Yeah, aye.
and Mr. Mark says aye. Okay. So we're gonna move right on to, well, actually, I was, so June 28th, any questions or comments on those minutes? I see no hands, so I will ask for a motion to approve those.
So moved.
And a second?
Carter with a second.
Thank you, Carter. Okay, so Sheila,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Christine,
Yes.
Gerhard,
Abstain, I wasn't there.
okay, Hank,
Aye.
and Mr. Mark says aye. Okay. So, fine. So we are going to move on to old business, and I know that there was, so the introduction of the new member, it is on the agenda. I know there was some, there was an email that went out, and, Gerhard, I believe that you, or somebody had sent a email to Susan regarding the new member. Is that correct?
Yes, Kevin Flynn is no longer with us, so therefore the new member replacing him is Tom Doust.
Okay, Gerhard, I just have to, before we do anything, I'm not even gonna move that one through. I do have some questions on that I think I'm gonna have to bring to the school committee, because the original memo that went out, it was asking for one member of the select board from each member town, as well as the finance committee, school committee members, and members of the community. So I just have to check on that, just to see if that's good. The other thing, just for your information, I believe that may be an open meeting violation, where there are only 3 members on the Board of Selectmen. If 2 of them are on this meeting, that would be an open meeting law violation. So I just want to look into that before I do anything further. Gerhard, is that okay?
That's fine, but we already checked into it, and we got the report back was that being such a small town, it's oftentimes that 2 or more select board members may be in on somebody else's meeting, and that's not a violation as long as we don't make any decisions for the town.
Okay, all right. Let me just look at that. But again, the other one is I just need to go back and verify that with the school committee, because they voted on certain members, and I just want to make sure that that's not going to be a problem before we move forward with that. Okay.
Okay, well, just so you know, Kevin Flynn was on the Board of Selectmen as well. So
I understand. Yep. okay?
He was.
Um,
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a point of clarification.
Yep.
One, Mr. Flynn was the county administrator. He wasn't on the Board of Selectmen.
Yes,
He did not have a vote for the Board of Selectmen. And also, I think the question, which I think is a good one, is that that the school committee, well, a couple of things. One, they listed the members from each town.
yes,
So there is a document out there. But secondly, the school committee would first have to appoint him to the board. So that will have to be put on the school committee meeting, whatever the next one is. And I don't have that date in front of me, but I think that at the very least, that has to go through that process. And from there, you know, it can, whatever happens from the school committee perspective is how it'll go.
and I appreciate that, Chris. I had just found out about it today, so I just want to look into it a little further, but I appreciate that clarification. So with that, I am actually going to hand it over to Jay, and we'll go from there, okay?
Okay.
Actually, Anne
Thank you,
Marie,
Jay.
can you give me control to share my screen, please?
You can't do it already. I thought Susan had given it to everybody, but because I don't know how to do it. So someone will have to walk me through this.
Yeah, it's not letting me do that.
So what you'll do is you'll go to panelists and you will right click on who wants to take over. I didn't see, was it
Mac.
Mac? So you will click on that and you'll give him permission to share screen.
Don't see that as an option.
So do me a favor, when you go down to share screen,
Yep,
click on share screen.
yep.
What do you see?
I see my stuff.
All right. Do you see that share screen that gives you some type of ability to share it with everybody or et
Oh,
cetera?
yep, I see it, yep. All right, try it now.
Yeah, I got it. All right. Can you see my document?
Yes.
Okay, let me get it so I can see it also. So Jay and I talked about the best way of going forward here. And as you know, we have spent 2 or 3 months talking about around section 6, which is about the apportionment assessment to the communities. And we haven't come to consensus about that. We would like to try to get through the rest of the document. So our suggestion is that we start with 7 and see if we can get through the rest of the document tonight. And at the end, Jay and I will have a recommendation of how we go back and tackle number 6. So you see on my screen, I have started with number 7 here. And there were some questions about this. And this is for the school committee in order to vote to incur debt. That takes a 2/3 vote. And as it says here, there are two ways they can do that with section 16D, which is the typical way of sending it to the 2 towns and having each town vote in order to incur the debt. And if either town says no, then obviously the school committee cannot incur the debt. The question came up about section 16N, which is a little more controversial, where a school committee theoretically or legally can say they're going to have one election for both towns at the same time, and the total number of votes from both towns, that's what will prevail, either yes or no. And I think Carter asked the question about whether the regional agreement could deny the school committee access to section N. And as you can see on the on the agenda, I put at the bottom of the agenda, I had asked, can a regional agreement prevent a school committee from using Chapter 71, Section 14N? And the answer came back from Christine Lynch at DESE. No, the language of the agreement cannot limit the power given to the school committee under 7114D to change the method by a 2/3 vote. So whether we have these two paragraphs in the document or not, that is the law, and the school committee has a right to use either of those sections. As we know, that N is very seldom used, and it's only used in some very specific situations. And I'm sure the school committee is aware of that and would prefer to use the D. So I don't know, any thoughts, any questions about that?
Gerhart has a question.
Okay,
So what kind of debt is they anticipating to incur?
any kind of debt. If you were putting a new roof on the school, if you were building a new school, if you were have to incur some debt that's for the regional schools, for the school, for example, of any kind. That's what the school committee has to have a 2/3 vote, and it has to go to the towns to approve it.
So basically, if the school committee will then be able to create debt, the town is obliged to pay it, even though the town has no control over it?
No, the
No,
towns
no.
have to vote on it first. Each town has to vote to approve the school committee incurring the debt. And if the towns don't approve it, it doesn't happen.
Well, with respect, that's not completely true. If one of the town or both towns fail to act, is it not automatically approved by default if they don't hold a meeting?
Yes, that's true, but that's technically voting on it.
Well, it's technically not voting on it.
Well, that's a technicality, you're right. But the towns definitely have an opportunity to turn it down.
Is there a provision earlier that states that it has to be notified in with so many days or whatever? It can't be they still have to let them know that they're going to go this route, correct? That's what I seem to remember. I don't have it right in front of me, but well,
Right.
I do, but not.
Yeah, it's the language here says that within 7 days of the school committee voting to want to authorize debt, they have to notify the select boards, and then the select boards have another 45 days in which to act upon it, to have a town meeting to approve it or disapprove it. So yes, there are some time limits in there.
Well, the problem is that the towns now are responsible for any debt that is over $15,000, according to this document. So why would the school committee need to then incur debt if the towns are responsible for so much more money?
Well, the district is responsible for your secondary school. The district owns your secondary building. And so that it would be used for that. And you're right, now anything over $15,000 in the elementary school, that's true, the town would have to incur the debt itself.
I don't remember it saying that I was only to the elementary school. It sounded like it was for the entire thing.
No.
The only thing this is for the regional, and the only building that is currently under the regional is the middle high school.
It doesn't make sense.
But I think that's a good comment. I think we ought to make that more clear. That this refers to buildings owned by the region. Do you agree, Jay, that we ought to include something to make that more clear?
Well, I think it already says that, but if people feel more comfortable by clarifying it further, then they could. I mean, when it says the committee may vote to incur debt, it's the regional school committee that's doing that. And they would only incur debt for regional district costs. But yeah, if it makes people feel more comfortable about it, you could. The other thing is that there are no, to the earlier question, Chris can correct me if I'm wrong, but there are no plans to borrow any money. This language is there as a provision. It's a very standard provision in regional agreements, so that the committee does have the ability to borrow if they need to, and the towns have complete control over whether or not that really happens.
Right, but you're right, and Jay's right, the district school committee, the regional school committee cannot vote to incur debt on the elementary school over 15,000. You're right.
Carter, go ahead if you have a question.
It's more of a comment,
Yep.
with respect to the statement that the district may have no plans to issue debt. That may be true. But I don't want that to come back to haunt us in a year or two or
Yeah.
three. You've got some roof issues there, I believe, that need to be dealt with in the near term. And while it's not immediate, I don't want to leave the impression that there isn't anything in the foreseeable future, Jeff.
That's actually a very good point, Carter. Yes.
Yeah, Carter, I was just trying to explain that it's not here because of some imminent plan.
No, I understand, but I just don't want to, in a year, have somebody come back and say, you told us there weren't any plans.
Yeah, no, this is a recommended provision for regional agreements so that the school committee has the ability to address needs that have to be addressed.
So if we bring that back at the next meeting, making it clear that we're talking about district-owned buildings, are we okay with this section now?
To some degree.
All right,
I was wondering if we could ask for a tentative vote. I mean, if the understanding is that we're going to plug something in to clarify that it's regional district costs, then could we have a vote for tentative approval?
that would be good, Jeff.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would take a motion to accept, it was 7, right?
Yes.
To accept section 7, with the understanding that we will clarify and put some language in there to clarify that this is in relation to any of the district buildings.
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Second? Did I get a second for that?
Second.
Thank you, Christine.
Who was the first?
Sheila,
Thanks.
well, I'm sorry, what was that? Tim?
No.
Carter?
Yes,
Christine?
Yes.
Gerhard?
No.
Hank?
Aye.
And Mr. Mark says aye. I think, with the three, what was it? Emery, what was the column? I didn't get that.
I asked who made the first motion.
I did.
Thanks.
Obviously, next time, if we look at what we added is not satisfactory, obviously we'll fix it.
Yeah, that was about as close a vote as we've had. Does anybody who voted no on that, because I realize it passed 4-3, I think it did anyway. Is there anybody who voted no want to comment about what is missing or what they're concerned about? No? I'll go.
Tim has hand up.
Yeah, I think it's a little vague and unclear. The $15,000, as I understood it, was for any capital expense outside of the normal school district budgeting. but that's not what we just presented here. We also did not have a discussion before we called a vote. So procedurally, we did it wrong. But I'm just trying to make sure I'm understanding this.
The 15 limit is only for individually town-owned buildings. If it's over the cap in the district budget, it goes to the town. This
I
is a
beg-
shared district provision for a shared district building.
Right.
Say that again, Christie.
The prior provision about the $15,000 cap or limit is for town-owned buildings. So if it's anything above the 15 to TES or would have been above the 15 to Phillipston, those expenses would go to the town as a capital expense to the town.
I
But
would
the
beg to
district
differ
itself
with,
owns the other buildings.
I
so
would beg
this
to
is-
differ with that because in the 23 years I've been involved with this school district, anything that broke the magic $5,000 came to the towns directly. And I would have to find the regional agreement and go back through my town meeting minutes on that.
Yes, we've just changed this, Tim. You're right. It was 5 and we voted last time to move that number to 15, I mean.
Right.
So as Christine just said, this refers to district-owned buildings. That you're referring to, the 15,000 refers only to town-owned buildings. Two different things.
Otter, if you have a comment or a question, go ahead.
I have a question. Is 4-3 the accurate vote?
We didn't.
I believe it
Gerhard-
was.
Gerhard voted no. Tim
Yep.
voted no. Carter voted yes. Jeff voted yes. Hank voted yes.
Yep.
Christine Bennett voted yes.
Yep.
And the woman, I'm sorry, someone who
Jill.
was just, she voted, I thought yes, but I mean, is she on? I don't even know if she's on for right now.
I think the first vote was a no. That's why I thought it was 4.
Sheila, that's what I got. I
I
got the.
was, I was
Go
the
ahead.
first vote and I voted yes.
you
Okay,
did?
I'm
Okay, sorry,
Okay.
Sheila, I couldn't hear it.
Then
No
it's
problem.
So it was
Okay.
5-2.
5-2, yeah.
5-2. Yep.
Mac, may I make another comment? So this
Yeah.
$15,000 thing that is being discussed a little bit, that comes from section 4 and 4B. And it's about, it's in the lease section. And at the end of the section, it speaks to costs for insurance, maintenance, repair, utilities. It doesn't, I mean, maybe it's a minor point, but it's not about capital. It's about repairs to that building.
Right
in
there,
excess
you just
of
passed it.
15.
You just passed it,
Okay,
right there.
but it also does mention, or in excess of 15 shall be considered a capital cost, excuse me, I stand corrected, and paid solely by the town. So it's about maintenance and repair and utilities, but it can also be something that is a capital cost. But that is most likely going to be repair money because that's not very much money. So I just wanted to kind of make that point, that it's in the leasing section.
Okay, let's
Move on.
move on to section 8. 8 is about transportation. We added the 2 words in blue there, resident. Excuse me, regular school transportation shall be provided by the district to resident enrolled students K to 12 according to Mass General Law and committee policy. And the cost shall be apportioned to the member towns based on the total number of resident enrolled students in each member town as defined in the assessment section. So I think that's fairly clear. Can we, any comments about that?
Oh, Gerhard, do you have a question or comment on that?
I do. So who pays for transportation for the pre-K?
I could not
Who
hear that.
pays for the transportation for the pre-K?
Pre-K, if they're a special needs student, the district will, but it's not based on resident enrollment. It's based on that student's specific needs. The regular students in pre-K, I don't believe get transportation. Is that right, Chris?
That is correct. And
So
Maria,
Yes. that's
preschool
correct.
programs have both regular students and special needs students in them, and the regular students don't get transportation. The special ed students get it based on whatever their needs are. Is that
Which
right,
is-
Anne
so
Marie?
it's-
That's
it's
correct.
law, right?
So do we have any sort of a breakdown of costs of what it's going to cost the district, both towns for the irregular pre-K students?
Well, it depends. It changes every year because it's based on the child's needs, if it's in their IEP or not.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Anne Marie, but you could get a child enrolled halfway through the year and it could change
Correct.
again too, couldn't it?
We do all the time.
That's in your regular budget.
Okay.
So
And
Jeff, can we,
transportation.
Yep.
can we get a vote on that?
Yeah. Yeah, I do want to take a vote on this, but is there any further discussion before we take a vote? Any further discussion or questions or comments?
Well, I would just also add that the other reason why this is important to include in the document is it's related to your pursuit of regional school district transportation reimbursement.
Mhm.
So that's the other good reason to state this here. Yeah.
Thank you, Jim. So I am looking for a motion to approve section, I think it's 8. Thank you. It's not big enough. Section 8, transportation. Well, I'm having a hard time with these motions tonight. Can I get a motion to approve
This
this?
is Carter moving for tentative approval of
Thank you.
section, is that 7, Jeff, transportation?
8. It's actually 8, Carter.
My apologies.
That's okay.
The script's a
my
little
fault. I said
smaller
seven.
than these old eyes are reading. Section 8, transportation.
Second.
Can I
I
get a
heard a
second?
second from Hank. I think I heard
Oh.
a second from Hank.
Thank you, Chris. Okay. So we will do a roll call vote. I will start with Sheila.
Well, first I think we have to have a discussion.
Oh, wait.
Yep. Is there any discussion on the
Yeah,
motion?
is there any
basically?
discussion on this?
Just a quick general comment. I'd like to see us follow the MGL on transportation reimbursement, and I realize that's out of our direct control.
Yeah,
I think we all would, Tim.
100% would be good.
Okay, so I am going to go to the roll call vote. Sheila,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes,
Carter,
Yes,
Christine,
Yes,
Gerhard,
Yes.
Hank,
Aye.
and Mr. Mark says aye.
Okay. Moving on to section 9 on amendments. You could see, I think I have the whole thing on the screen. There's very little that's been changed with this section. The main thing there, this is saying is that when you amend the regional agreement, you can't substantially impair the rights of either of the districts in terms of their, what they owe in terms of debt or any other. You can't harm one of the members by changing this agreement. You can make things more fair or improve things, but you can't hurt people, hurt towns. And section B just talks about that it will be, it goes to a town meeting and first of all, it goes to the select board. Select board is supposed to put it on the next annual or special town meeting. Goes to the meeting and by a majority vote, the towns will decide if they support this amendment or not. And then if both towns support it, and again, both towns have to support it or it doesn't pass, then it has to go to the commissioner for his approval. So again, nothing has really changed there. Any thoughts about that?
Go ahead, Gerhard.
So there should be something in there that the school committee can't force each town into multiple special town meetings in order to get something passed. So there should be something in it to limit this to once per fiscal year.
All right.
That's,
Anybody?
yeah, I would think that I think, Gerhard, correct me if I'm wrong, if you're talking about maybe the 1/12 scenario that we've gone through. If I'm not mistaken, and please correct me, that actually is in this, the statute. It
Yeah.
can't be a one and done. It can go for X amount of times, but I understand what you're saying. You can't go 12 meetings, but I don't know what folks thinking. I know that we follow the directive from actually Christine and company from DESI.
Gerhard, this does not allow the school committee to require the select board to do anything. It just says at the next annual or special town meeting that the select board calls, then this has to come up. And so the school committee cannot force the select board to have any meetings, period.
Carter, do you have a question or comment?
We do have a couple of comments from council when you are prepared to discuss those.
On this subject here, Carter?
I'm on paragraph B
Okay.
of section 9 at your convenience.
Unless there's any other, I think we can move to that now, Carter, and I don't see any other. So, yes, why don't we move forward with that, Carter?
So we have a couple of comments from council here. The first is, and I'm in paragraph B, line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, line 7. Line 6, it starts, the select board in each member town shall include in the warrant for the next annual or special town meeting called for the purpose. So we've got a couple of things. One is in general, annual and special town meetings are not called for the purpose, which is to consider an amendment. Secondly, setting that aside for the moment, the next annual or special town meeting, it's quite possible that there is one coming up, but that the warrant's already closed, and this language would technically conflict. So whether we say the next possible annual or special town meeting at which such amendment might be considered, or something along those lines, we're just struggling with some of the language in that one sentence. Do you want me to spool out the several comments all at once, Jeff, or do you want to try to take them one at a time?
No, why don't I think I would prefer to do them individually, Carter.
Okay.
And can I just ask Carter on that one? On the comments or the feedback that you get, did we have any proposed language?
Well, the specific proposal was with respect to the first half was the timing for the next possible annual or special town meeting. And frankly, we weren't completely thrilled about that. But the concept here is that you're submitting the amendment for an upcoming annual or special town meeting. We don't need all this called for the purpose and article stating called for the purpose. Basically, you're going to submit the amendment and we would like it on your next annual or special town meeting, period there. The problem becomes, Jeff, what if the next, and this is a wordsmithing issue.
Yeah.
What if the next annual meeting, let's say is, we just use a figure of May 15th and the school committee sends it on April 15th, which is 30 days. Yet in the Templeton community, around April 6th to April 10, they've closed the warrant. And you can't reopen it and you can't reissue a new one. So we're just trying to figure out how to make that workable.
Carter, what if we tied it somehow to the warrant, to saying that at the next time that it can be put on a warrant?
Well, what if we tied it for the annual meetings to delivering the budget? Now we're fixed and we're clean there. Is there an instance in which you would think you would submit amendments to special town meetings?
It's more likely that, no. So your concern is about the timing, that the school committee could say technically you have to put it on at the next town meeting, but there might not be time to get it on the warrant. Is that correct?
Exactly. Inadvertently, let's say that
Yeah.
in the instance I used, they sent it out on April 8th. Well, there are some years in which April 6th, the town meeting warrant has already been signed, sealed, delivered, and posted. So that's why I'm thinking maybe if we, for the annual town meeting, we tie it to the same as the budget, no later than March 30, whatever we did there. And then we figure out some sort of advance notice for the special town meeting. I'm not a great wordsmith on this one
Yeah.
issue. It's just something that council has identified.
All
as a
right,
problem.
we'll think about that, Carter.
Mac, I think there's, if I can jump in for a moment, I think there's a way to address Carter's concern here, and that the amendment has to get to the appropriate select boards within a time frame that allows for
Yeah.
inclusion on the warrant. And if that is a concern, we can just state that somehow and avoid what would be a conflict. So if it's got to go to a special, it's got to be done in an appropriate time frame.
Yeah.
So Jeff, we did have some concerns in the next sentence as well.
Yep.
if you- So council, such amendment shall take effect upon its acceptance by, they're suggesting you move the majority vote there so that it's clear it's by majority vote of each of the member towns at such, and because of the problematic use of the word next, at such annual or special town meeting and by the commissioner. You've already defined commissioner up above. So we don't need to add the of Desi hereinafter referred to as the commissioner. He's already been defined up above in section, bear with me, section, it's in the apportionment section, guys.
No, I think you're right, Carter. Yeah.
Section 5, para C, sub para 4. You've already defined the commissioner.
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah. So you're looking at moving the words majority vote where?
Before each of the member towns instead of afterwards.
Yeah, so it reads shall take effect upon its acceptance by a majority vote from each member town.
Correct. At such annual or special town meeting,
Right.
and by the commissioner.
And by the commissioner.
Period.
A majority vote. There you go.
And why, you'd have to ask the lawyer why it needs to be preceding instead of following. I'm just following instructions here on this one.
Okay.
I don't know if we need this at such business either, Mac.
Right.
Yeah, basically, it's the majority vote of each of the member towns and by the commissioner.
Yeah.
Because you've already identified where,
Yep,
right? Or when.
yep.
Is that it?
Those are the only comments we have on the amendment section.
So let me see, what else, what do we have to go back to look at? So called for the purpose, you would suggest that we delete that.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you're gonna send an amendment to the select board. They're gonna put it on their, next possible warrant. I think it's just sorting out, making sure that they have enough time so that they haven't closed their warrants. So we don't have this trap of, well, yeah, you sent it to us on April 8th, but we'd already closed the warrant on April
Right.
6th. Because that's, I know it sounds pickety, but that's the kind of a nit that can cause bad feelings between a town and its district.
So, Jay, can you tell me what your suggestion was, and let's see what it looks like.
Well, a notice in writing
Wait a minute, let
to
me
the
get,
select board of each of the member towns that a proposal to amend this agreement has been received. And we want to say in a timely manner that allows for inclusion on the warrant. Or something like that. And shall
being,
enclose a
or
copy
being
of the-
mindful of when the warrant closes for each, I mean, I don't know, right? Because you have to be mindful of that.
Yeah.
Yes, you do.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm just trying.
You already have a date for annual, because you got to
Right.
give them the budget by March 30. The trick becomes tying it into potential specials.
Right.
Okay, so if I'm understanding this correctly, Carter, you're really looking at this as part one and part two. So what part one would be that the amendment should be sent to the select boards at the same time as the proposed budget for the annual town meeting.
No later than.
Right, and then for a special town meeting, it needs to be received in a manner that allows for inclusion on the warrant.
Correct.
I'm
Okay.
wondering, Carter, I'm trying to understand, I understand what Jay just said. I'm just wondering if it's done in a timely manner that allows for inclusion on the warrant, why isn't that the same for the annual meeting?
I like the simplicity, if you will, of having fixed dates myself. I mean, this is, at the end of the day, this is all going back to council, but the more we can bugs we can work out now, the better off we are. I don't want to monopolize the debate discussion here. I suppose some other
Good to get
folks-
this resolved.
Worth getting into. We do have some other questions.
Yep. So Christine, I'm not sure who had their hand up first, but Christine, let me start with you.
I was just gonna say, maybe we include the fourth line from the bottom, shall include in the warrant for the next legally available annual or special town meeting. Does that cover the date concern?
Can you say that again, Christine? I'm
I'm
sorry.
not sure what that
yeah.
means.
The select board in each member town shall include in the warrant for the next legally available annual or special town meeting. So that includes the dates for getting on the warrant and everything.
Well, I'm trying to,
I don't know if there's a legal, I'm just trying to
Yeah.
use the
Yeah.
word legal, might be a little, we have an agreement. I'm not saying we don't, right? So,
Well, it'd be under the town regulations for when things have to
Yeah,
go
I'm
on the
just-
town's
yeah.
warrant.
because we submit you know what really is the bugaboo, quite frankly, of the special town meetings, right? Because you could argue the annual town meeting, we know when our information needs to be in, right? We've identified that. We've actually talked about it, whatever, how many weeks ago. It's the special town meeting where you almost have to be a little gray and say that you have to provide the information to the towns for, an amendable time for the special town meeting. I'm not sure how that might have to be a bit nebulous. I don't know that you can, really solidify a time for a special town meeting. I don't know.
But I mean, any warrant going into the town meeting has to follow the guidelines, doesn't it? I mean, it has to follow
Yeah, but
the time.
Yeah. In other words, when they close the warrant, right? And all of a sudden, what Carter is saying is that all of a sudden we put in, right, or someone, anyway, right, puts in to amend it, and they've already closed the warrant. They've already gone through the process. We don't want to get into that. Well, we submitted it. You never told us. Yes, we
Yeah.
did. You closed it on purpose. I think that's what Carter is saying.
Yeah.
Could potentially happen in these situations.
Okay.
But I defer to Carter. I mean,
Yeah, go ahead, Carter. I know you have another comment.
Well, I'm wondering, going with the thought of, again, I'm not an attorney, I just follow directions from them. Going with the idea that the warrant is still open, what if we said something like, the select board in each member town shall include in the warrant for the next possible annual or special town meeting for which the warrant has not yet been closed,
Yeah,
the amendment for a vote. I mean, you still could, yes, it lands in the selectman's desk and somebody rushes to close it
Yeah.
just to snub the committee.
Yeah.
But at least then it's, well, you know, guys, no worries, you know, you put it on your next one. There isn't an accusation that that the school committee sent it in after. I'm just trying to figure out how we minimize frictions
Yeah.
about these things coming in.
all right, well, I just put it in caps, so Jay and I will work on that.
Mac, just a thought. Some of this is spelled out by town bylaw. Maybe we need to reference the bylaw.
Yeah.
All right, any other thoughts in this? We probably should not ask for a vote on this section until we work on it a little bit.
I would agree with that, Mac.
We also
I would agree
lost
with that.
quorum because I don't believe maybe I'm wrong. I don't see Gerhart.
Oh, yes, you know, he's here. He's here.
Is he? Oh, there he
Yep, I
is.
can
I'm
still
sorry.
see
It's
him.
my
He's
screen.
here.
I can't tell who's in. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Yep.
Is there anything else with this section?
Mac, I think you're right about you and I kind of crafting some words to address the concerns that have been expressed. And I don't really have a polished suggestion right now, but what I'm thinking about is this two-pronged approach that Carter has mentioned. So in the first instance, an amendment to the regional agreement shall be submitted to the member towns for the annual town meeting on the same date as the budget proposal. And then alternatively, if that's not possible, the amendment to the regional agreement will be submitted for a special town meeting with, in a timely manner so that it can be included on the warrant. And I think that would come pretty close to doing it.
Okay,
So why don't we come back to that with something that's a little more.
Should there be something in there that makes sure that you can't force?
well, you can't.
You cut out, Gerhard. We didn't get the end of that.
You know, that can't happen anyway.
Oh, is there something that should be put in it? Is there something that should be put in there so that the school committee can't force a special town meeting?
There's no legal way for them to do that.
They
No,
can't do it
it's a
anyway.
town function.
This agreement has no jurisdiction over town government. So they can't force a town meeting. It basically.
Well, there's other language in there that says that if the town doesn't move on it, in one of the previous articles, that the town doesn't move on it fast enough, then it's essentially a yes vote. So there needs to be something in there that clarifies that.
That was on borrowing, I believe.
Yeah, it was. And one of the reasons that that's in there is for the really small amounts that a select board may not want to call a meeting for. That's one of the reasons that kind of language is there. And then the other reason that's there is because sometimes there's an increase in the budget, but there isn't an increase in assessments. So the towns are not that concerned about it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say, Gerhard, but there's no way the district can force the town to have a town meeting.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to admission of additional towns. Again, some of it is the same. A is pretty much the same as what you have. And that, again, has to be a majority vote in each of the towns in order to add another town. And we discussed a little bit about B before. For example, if let's say you have a 20-year debt on a school and you've paid your two towns have paid 10 years worth, and a third town wants to become a part of your district, you may say, in order for you to do that, and your kids are going to start coming to this school, we need to have you pay back 3 years or 5 years of what we've paid already. It's not fair for you to come in and start paying now with only 10 years left when we've already paid 10 years. So this clause gives you an opportunity, gives the school committee an opportunity to say to this other town, there's an additional fee for you to join our region. And then obviously they have to decide if they're willing to pay that. If they're not going to join you. And then the C again is if you change your regional agreement, just amend your regional agreement, but it does not include admitting a new town or having a town leave, then whenever the commissioner signs off on it, you can start right away with your new regional agreement. But if your agreement changes to add a town or subtract a town, then the commissioner has to sign it as of December 31st before you can start the new regional agreement the following July 1st. And as Anne Marie would be able to attest, the purpose of that is if you were adding another town and you found that out or she found that out in April or May, she would not be able to get the budget ready for July 1st. So the point is, if the commissioner has to sign off on it by the 31st of December, that would give the school district and the towns a time to adjust the budget, the next fiscal year's budget with the new town. Any comments there?
I'm not seeing it. Oh, yep, Carter, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move for approval of section 10 so that we can have discussion and I can vote against it and explain why.
Okay. Oh, okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Carter, go ahead.
I am voting against this section because of the provisions of paragraph B. I am one of the prospective member towns. For those who remember the vocational technical school Bay Path in the early 2000s, and my memory may go back than some others do, in which the business manager stole on the neighborhood of $8± millions of dollars. And the district had started to pay off. It had recovered what it could from insurance. It had recovered what it could from civil suits. And the district discussed whether or not to require prospective towns to pay portions of what they had already paid to date. In other words, we accepted fully that we needed to pay our portion going forward. From the date of our admission going forward, that was part of the debt. We did not accept that sunk expenses should be recovered from us. That was us. That was their problem. They made the mistake. We didn't. And also it was completely unclear as to how it would be calculated. We found the discussion arbitrary and we found the calculation puzzling. And I find paragraph B to open the door for a similar such situation in which maybe there's something you want to recover, maybe there isn't. Maybe you'll figure out how you want to calculate it. Maybe you'll just pull the number out of the phone book. Maybe you will recover it from one town, but then something happens in 4 years later and you say, nah, we'll take a pass on that because we really want them in the district more than we wanted the last town in the district. I just find the open-ended nature of paragraph B, my apologies, all the way around troubling to me based upon my experience and observations. And that is why I will be voting against the tentative approval of section, are we calling this one 10, I guess?
Yes.
Thank you for the opportunity to explain, Jeff.
Nope, that's absolutely fine. I appreciate the explanation, Carter. So I just need to close that one.
So Carter, I have a kind of a follow-up to that. So if clearly this business about establishing an additional amount for a new member town is a problem that you see, if it comes out, it means that the regional district couldn't ever benefit from asking a new member to contribute to costs or to pay for some reasonable cost. It would take that, it would take that provision out. So just wanted to sort of say that. It's I understand the circumstances that you describe are problematic, but if taking it out also means that the regional district doesn't have this avenue to pursue if it comes up at all, even if it's a positive circumstance.
I'm not necessarily against the charging of, if you will, an admission fee. We all, whether we join the gym or we join, whatever it is, sometimes we pay an initial, if you will, initiation fee, for lack of a better term. I am troubled by the open nature of this, the fact that maybe it's applied, maybe it isn't applied. How is it going to be calculated? I just find it so open-ended as to trouble me, Jay. If you, I certainly, frankly, and I'm only one of 7 people here tonight, I would be much more open to calculating some sort of admission or initiation fee that recover the costs of working with the town, the costs of, figuring out what their percentages might be, the costs of orienteering new employees, of harmonizing collective bargaining agreements. There are substantial costs involved in Dr. Cassavant and his team going out and talking with other member communities about why they want to be part of this school district. And there's real costs. There's counsel, there's accounting. I don't have a problem with recovering costs if but they're defined as to what costs will be recovered and how they will be calculated. Again, I'm only one of 7, and I'm making a distinction between a one-time initiation fee, membership fee, as opposed to just a wide open blanket. Yeah, if we decide we want to charge you for something, we'll charge you something.
Okay, thank you.
My comment on that, it can work both ways. Where you're working, Carter, in Boxborough 50 years ago, and it became an Acton Boxborough Regional School District. Acton was so anxious to get Boxborough into their region that they actually gave them a break. Instead of asking them for more money, they gave up, said that no matter what percentage of kids you have in our school, you only have to pay 5% of any capital costs. And that lasted for 50 years until just about 4 years ago. So it can work both ways. And again, I understand your comment about what happened in your situation sometime down the road. This and actually DESE required us to put in the second sentence in there, at the end of the second sentence, saying that it will be made clear to the voters prior to the new member town's vote on admission. That was end of that sentence was required by DESE to make sure that everything was up front and that there were no hidden costs, and everybody realized, well, yes, you're going to help defray the costs of the last 10 years of the costs of your new school, or no, you're not going to have to do that because we'd rather have you in the district and sharing the cost of the operational budget. But anyway, so
then with respect, if you think there's an Acton-like town that wants, that the district has a town that wants involved so much that it might be willing to give it a cut, you better go back and present to this committee language that would provide for such reductions in the apportionment of costs, because you've presented an idea that does not exist in the document as of now.
Well, again, when you add a new town, you're gonna have to write a new regional agreement. So you can negotiate that at the time. So I don't think, it's pretty difficult to put every possible scenario into a regional agreement. So that's why you have to leave some things open enough that the people who are doing this 10 years from now or 20 years from now have the opportunity to negotiate what they think is right.
Then I would respectfully suggest, if you believe that an entire new amended agreement needs to be done beyond simply admitting a town, we take out paragraph B and you can make those discussions part of that amended agreement at that point in time.
And that,
Then
yeah,
again, that would
good
only
point.
be unique to that one school that wanted to come in, which I thought you wanted to avoid. Like you're saying, we should have a blanket policy for any town that we have a discussion with.
If you're gonna make this part of the agreement, yeah, you're gonna have that discussion, and before you can even really start to chat with them, you're gonna scare them off by a discussion with the school district of, okay, so in addition to just saying, yeah, come on down, is there gonna be a price tag for it and how it's gonna be? I'm sorry, I wish I could state it better, but I'm just
You have a
extremely
good point.
troubled over the very open-ended nature of this, and the fact that just having it in there and having that discussion could scare them off even before Dr. Cassavant and his excellent team get a chance to explain to them the merits of being a member of our district. And again, I'm only one of 7. You may have 6 votes here for this.
Right. I'm just curious, there was something you mentioned earlier, Carter, about the district buildings may need roof repair in the near future. So if we do go and vote forward, it's, you know, $50,000 and it's going to have an expectancy of 20 years. And in 5 years, we come to fruition with another town. I know there's speculation about Winchendon, that they would come in and then get the benefit of that without paying into it. Could we say that
Well,
they would proportionally assume in the remainder of any long-term debt, something like that? Would that be acceptable?
Going forward, they're gonna have to pay their share of the debt, just like all of us do. The question becomes whether or not there are any backward-looking costs that you want to try to recover, or one-time initiation costs that you want to try to recover.
Okay, I guess I'm not familiar enough with how the mechanics of the long-term debt works. So even if they didn't sign the original agreements, they would be paying part of it as an operating expense going forward?
As part of that capital and debt cost. Anne Marie, please correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Yeah, they would, a new member would be included in the language about apportionment and
Okay,
assessment.
thank you.
Yeah.
My suggestion is, Jeff, that when you're ready, that people vote on this. If it does not get support, we ask Carter to make a new motion deleting B and seeing how that goes. But to follow through with this as it is written first, see what the vote is on this, and then go from there.
So is there no further discussion on this? All right, so seeing none, I will, I think the motion is to, Carter, if I'm not mistaken, your motion was to accept it as written, correct?
That is correct.
That's okay. So I will do a roll call vote. I will start with Sheila,
I'll go with yes.
Tim,
No,
Carter,
No,
okay, Christine.
No,
I'm sorry, was that no, Christine?
correct.
Thank you. Gerhard,
No,
Hank,
Aye.
and Mr. Mark says aye. Well, so let me just see. That's a yes, 1, 2. So that is it. If I'm not mistaken, it fails though. 1, 2, 3, 4 to 3. If I'm that
Yes,
that
3 to
feels
4.
it feels 3 to 4 to 3. Yep. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would like your guidance. I can move to approve tentatively this section with A and paragraph C renumbered as B, or I can make a motion to request the consultants to prepare a new section B based around some of the concepts that I've laid out to be called a induction fee, membership fee, something that does provide for an initial fee, but is much better spelled out in that how it will be used in each and every instance and calculated.
Connor, I think going with the from the discussions, I think your latter motion would be the preferred method, I think.
Then, Mr. Chairman, I would move that the committee request the consultants to prepare a new paragraph B for the provision of a induction fee, new member fee. I don't know the best term that would spell out the terms and conditions under which new members would pay an initial fee to enter the district.
Second.
Thank you, Gerhard. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, we will move to a vote. And I will again begin with Sheila.
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes,
Christine?
Sorry, yes.
That's okay. Gerhard?
Yes.
Hank?
Aye.
And Mr. Mark says yes. So Jay and Matt, can you work on that language?
Be happy to. Yep.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to withdrawal. This is all new language. We'll go back and just to show you that the current language is a lot shorter and has a lot less information in it. And we have added this language because of what DESE has found in some other places, problems with towns who have left their region and not really paying their fair share. So the DESE wants to have it more spelled out so that there won't be a problem in the future. However, as you know, if one of your two towns were to pull out, then that dissolves the region. There's no more region. So it's somewhat of a moot point. So that's what this in A says. It would terminate the entire agreement if one town were to pull out. And the obligations, you see three basic things: liability for any unpaid operating costs, liability for a share of any indebtedness that has already been incurred, and the liability for any other liabilities incurred during the times that both member towns were a member of the district. And we specifically put in the term OPEB because that has been a problem in some other places, to make sure it's clear that if someone were to leave, that they are not absolved of their OPEB responsibilities. Then the next paragraph just talks about if your district were to dissolve, that any monies that were needed for future payments of unfunded indebtedness, that they would have to be put in a trust so that they could be paid. And this C talks about the clerk notifying the committee by certified mail, which we've inserted a couple of times, certified mail, that there is a amendment to dissolve or to leave the region. E is shall become effective when the majority of the committee is voted and approved by a majority vote at an annual or special town meeting at both of the member towns, and then signed off by the commissioner, obviously. So both towns and that's in your current agreement, have to agree to let one member out. And obviously, if that were to happen, your current leases would be terminated, and the current members of your school committee offices would be also terminated. So that's the gist of it. If there's comments about anything along the way, we can talk about it.
Yeah, I know that you've had your hand up, so why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, there's no mention in here about a partial withdrawal. Say, we only want to take the elementary out, not the entire, all of the classes. So if that were the case, then the agreement would still be standing, and they would still have a school committee and other things going on. So there needs to be something in there that addresses that.
That's a good point. I think, Jeff, it would be good to see if we have a consensus about that. If there is, we certainly can add that.
About a consensus on putting language in about a partial withdrawal, Zach, is that what you're?
Yes, right. Do other members want us to do that?
Yeah, there is still some discussion on this. Are there any other comments or questions on that?
Is that something Desi would allow without redoing the whole agreement again? Or is it going to be approved under this iteration?
It's possible. They don't like to do that. But I don't know that they would say outright no. We can run it by them.
Mac, it also doesn't change the fact that, let's say one town wanted to be their own elementary district. Both towns would have to agree to that. So,
Right.
yeah, so both towns would still have to agree to a partial. Commissioner would have to agree to a partial. The withdrawing town would have to reassure the Department of Education with a 5-year educational plan that describes how they're going to meet their responsibilities for educating their kids and the families.
I have heard talk about this in town a lot. And the one thing I don't know the towns realize is if they do that, they would completely lose the regional busing reimbursement for all the elementary kids. Isn't that correct, Anne Marie?
That's correct.
Yes, it
So
is.
both
Yeah.
towns would lose that.
No, one town. Well, yes, excuse me, you're right. Both towns would do it. Yeah.
Or can it be an uneven region where it's, all K through 12 from Templeton and only 5 through 12 from Phillipston or something like that? Can it be uneven that way and still stay a region?
Yeah, that raises a question of whether one elementary district can be a regional by itself, and I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, we could check on that.
No, there's possibilities that the elementaries could join up with another town. So that could easily be proven that there's a way to educate the kids. So I don't see that as a problem.
But the question is whether or not Templeton would lose if, say, Phillipston left K-6. Would Templeton be able to access regional transportation money in the elementary school?
Yeah.
Well, what if Winchendon comes in and there's another member in there, and then so
Yeah.
there has to be a.
We'll ask those questions.
Yeah.
I think a partial withdrawal would make Narragansett a 7 through 12 region. So it would be a new regional agreement and it'd be a whole process to it.
That's what it was before we went full regional. It was just the high school, junior high, 7-12.
I see. Okay.
And Jay, what does that do to the transportation? Does it totally eliminate it, or only partially for the grades that are involved now?
Yeah, I don't, it's an important question, Jeff, and I don't want to guess. So I think we'd have to be, I think I'd rather get back to you about that.
Okay.
But my sense is, I'm not optimistic that the elementary stuff would stay for.
No,
town.
I mean, we didn't, it wasn't like that before. It was just the regional.
Okay.
Transportation was just for the region.
Yeah.
7-12, so.
Right. So I guess we're still looking for, as a consensus about whether you want some language in there that would
Oh,
tentatively allow that to happen.
I'm sorry, Mac. I thought we were gonna reach out and get some of the questions answered before we did that. Do we still want to get a consensus on that?
Yeah, I would like to know if that's what your committee wants, then we will pursue it. If your committee says, no, we're not interested, then we won't spend your money trying to
Okay.
figure that out.
Okay, all right, understood. Connor, I see that you have your hand up. Why don't you go ahead?
I have a question. Is that not simply viewed as an amendment to the agreement as opposed to a withdrawal from the town? They're not withdrawing strike that. The scenario that's presented is not a complete and total withdrawal from the district. It's an amendment to the agreement to make it whatever, 6 through 12 or 5 through 12 or whatever. Is this not dealt with as an amendment as opposed to a withdrawal?
I would, off the top of my head, I would say that's true. I don't know about you, Jay. I would think that could happen.
Yeah, I would rather look into it. I think that it might be both, but I think it's a very good question.
Thank you.
Connor, do you still have a question? I'm sorry.
No, but when we're done with that, Jeff, I have a comment
Okay.
on another section of the document.
So Jeff, the three things I have so far is there's a question about whether we include partial withdrawal. There's
Correct.
a question about whether regional transportation would go away K through 6.
Yep.
There's a question about whether it is best placed in the section on amendments rather than the section on withdrawal.
Correct. Yes.
And
Or whether it could just be, whether it could just be an amended as opposed to, I mean, it doesn't sound the way it was presented that it would be a total withdrawal. It may just be an amendment to the agreement. Yes.
Right. So those are the 3 points I have so far. Is there anything else?
Or Jay, let me just add to your third one, or whether it's even needed to do that. If it can't just be an amendment, it may not need anything else, right?
You could, right. You wouldn't have to address partial withdrawal. It would be part of the amendment section. Right.
Correct.
Okay.
So maybe we don't have to do anything and just address it as an amendment if it comes up.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll pursue that with Desi.
Okay. Perfect. Connor, why don't you go ahead with the other comment that you had on a different section?
So with respect to the liabilities, we've spelled out OPEB, which I think is one that's on everyone's mind. But I don't want to lose sight, and I would like to ask for the introduction of the retirement liabilities as well. There remain, I believe, if I remember correctly, 13 years supposedly until those are fully amortized. But every time there's an economic downturn or a budget issue, one of the first places people go to is, well, why don't we just extend the amortization table? I'd like to keep both OPEB and the retirement liability front and center by where we said EG, and I forget exactly what section it is because I shrank it down again. But I'd like to add the retirement amortization of retirement liability in those parentheses sections. I think there's 2 of them where we have OPEB to keep the issue front and center.
Carter, help me understand the difference between retirement liability and OPEB.
Completely different calculations. Retirement liability is a statutory obligation assessed, I believe, Anne Marie could tell you how many, but all of your non-professional, your non-teaching staff, your paraprofessionals, your cafeteria workers, they're all in the Worcester County Regional Retirement System.
Right.
And you get an assessment for both your current obligation and the amortization of your backward-looking liabilities. OPEB is a number. Maybe I don't know if the district has started to put something aside on it. unless you need to float bonded indebtedness. There's plenty of districts and towns out there that are simply booking the number and they're not doing anything on it. They're two very different creatures related to different, they both relate to retirement, but one relates to the pension that you must statutorily pay and which is assessed upon you. And the other one relates to the provisions of health insurance, which, as I said, many cities, towns, and school districts are not, all they're doing is booking the liability, Mac. I don't, and I'm not suggesting that that's what this district is doing. I'm just trying to explain the difference between the two. And Anne Marie might be able to put it in better terms than I can.
I think you
Okay.
described it very well, but we actually have started putting aside money each year.
Okay.
For OPEB.
If I may, Jeff, interestingly, you use Worcester County. The last time we checked, and again, this is nothing official, but they were the third worst fully funded retirement system or something to that effect. So the point is well taken, is that if, let's say, they're 30 or 40% fully, funded for Worcester County, that's why we're seeing such spikes, for example. So that certainly would something that we would need to, I can tell you in this district, we would have to keep an eye on. Yes.
And that's why I'm asking that it be put in the agreement so that at least it's front and center. Whenever anybody looks at this section, it's like, oh, OPEB, okay, sure, fine. Oh, yeah, and this one over here too.
Okay,
All right,
Becky,
can I ask one last question on that? So
Yep.
that is, you do not consider Worcester County retirement responsibilities part of what is referred to in number 2 or number 3?
Well, what I'm saying is that we've gone ahead, I do, but we've gone ahead and spelled out OPEB, and I would just like to include the retirement liabilities to keep them front and center.
Okay, so name it so that
Yeah.
it really is absolutely clear. All right.
Yes, that's what I'm asking for.
and I think it does, Jay, I think it does say all outstanding debt, but I think Connor is just asking that if we put it there, it'll bring it front and center when everybody's reading this.
I understand. Yep.
Yep. All right.
okay, well, it looks like we have a little work to do, so we won't.
Yeah.
I don't think we should ask you to vote on this till we work on it.
Yeah.
All right, we're almost at the end. Is it possible we can finish the conflicts? Number 12. This is obvious. I've never seen this in another regional agreement. It's obvious that if the regional agreement does something it is not allowed by law, you have to go by the law. That's pretty clear. The last one, review, we do have one question here. Your current agreement says that every 5 years that the committee will look at the regional agreement to see if they want to make any changes. And we wondered, and you can see the question below, is there a preference for an option to review the agreement every 5 years and an obligation to review it every 10 years? Some districts feel that every 5 is too often. If you like it at 5, that's fine. So we thought we'd throw that out and ask you, what's your preference? To require it every 5 years or an option for 5 years, but require it every 10 years at the federal census?
Yeah, probably that'd be best optional every 10.
I think I would have to agree with that as well. Every 5 years is an obligation, and then, I mean, 10 years is an obligation. I'm fine with that language, or I'm fine with that idea.
Any other thoughts?
Oh, I'm sorry, Connor, go ahead.
I just want to clear the decks in case we don't get this one done. I'd like to move to approve section 12 as presented.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Is there any further discussion on section 7 before we vote on that?
Section 12,
I'm sorry, thank you. Yep, I'm sorry, thank you. 12, did I just see a hand? No, it went up and down. Okay. I don't see any further discussion on that. So I am going to move for a vote, and I will start with Sheila,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes,
Christine,
Yes,
Gerhard,
Yes.
Hank,
Aye.
and Mr. Mark says aye. So that's unanimous.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. So we can continue with section 13, the review.
So what I've heard, at least from two people, that you would prefer optional every 5 years and mandatory every 10. Anybody want to speak contrary to that? All right, well,
Yeah.
we'll adjust the language to do that.
Or do people want to vote on the 5-year, 10-year option?
Before we even change the language, Jay, is that what you're thinking?
Well, I'm just saying that with the understanding that it would
Yep.
be the option for 5 and the obligation for 10.
So we could do, yeah, so oh, go ahead, Carter.
well, I feel like the hog here tonight.
No,
I would like to make a motion. If people can follow along, I think this will make some sense. I would like to move that the language be modified to read beginning in 2025 and every 10 years thereafter, the school committee shall itself review and or appoint an advisory committee to study and recommend amendments to this agreement. However, the failure to do so shall not affect the validity of this agreement. Provided, however, that the school committee shall have the option in the 5th year of said period to appoint such an advisory committee.
There you go.
Second.
was that you? I'm sorry, was that Gerhard?
Yeah.
Okay. So there was a motion made. Is there any further discussion on the motion made to section 13? Sheila, go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry. Sheila, do you have a question?
I do. I just had a comment.
Yep.
So when I look at this, I see it's going to be 2022 before this actually gets in, at the earliest signed it into place. So to having a first review period being 2025 seems awfully early. Or the opportunity to review starting in 2025 seems awfully early.
I mean, Mac or Jay, I mean, so when we do finalize this, I mean, would that date just jump to, actually, would that date just jump to whenever this agreement is approved? Just 5 years out from, it should be.
Well, good. Carter,
Yeah, you probably shouldn't put an actual date in.
Carter, could you amend your motion to say 2030
Yep, absolutely.
for the first time? Okay.
And then I have a question. Now that I'm looking back at this,
Yep.
I'm asking this committee made up of a broad span of school officials, town officials, and citizens. No disrespect to the school committee, which I'd like to think I've had a decent working relationship with in my time with you. This provision, now that I'm looking at it, allows the school committee to reserve to itself the right to conduct the review. Do we not want, as two communities trying to work together with the school district, the brighter spotlight of a group such as this, Jeff, as opposed to letting the school committee do the review itself? Again, no disrespect to you and your members, who I found truthfully very hardworking, very collaborative.
I understand what you're saying, Carter, but I thought that is what happened. I mean, they did appoint the advisory committee. And now that I'm saying it, it's the school committee that does that.
Right, it's the and or.
Yeah.
What I just highlighted there, Carter?
Yep.
Yeah, it's the or, it's the, I'm not sure about how one would interpret this. So the school committee shall itself review and appoint an advisory committee?
Yep.
Or is it the school committee shall itself, or shall the school committee appoint an advisory committee? I'm sorry, guys, I'm just struggling with a little bit of wordsmithing here to make sure that there's a broader group of folks for more public discussion and better buy-in from the two towns.
So would that be achieved, Carter, if the language in green came out? So the school committee shall appoint an advisory committee to study, et cetera.
If the school committee didn't feel that that somehow clips their wings too much, yes, it would solve the issue, but we want the school committee to understand why I'm suggesting that there be an advisory committee of some fashion. And it's not just the committee itself.
So we also don't want to get mixed up between the 5-year and the 10-year.
Correct.
So in your motion, the bottom sentence is about the 5-year.
I think I have that, Jay, what he said.
Okay.
So the question is, do we want what's in green to be deleted, I guess?
I'm just wondering, since it's already in the prior provisions, I forget which one, that the towns could each suggest amendments to the committee on their own, amendments to the agreement on their own independently,
They
and vote
can.
on them. And then
Yeah.
it would go to the school committee. I just completely lost my train of thought. So do we want to have to automatically convene a committee if none of that is happening, if there are no issues that have come up and no major changes in state law that need to be updated? Do we want to have to commit to the committee?
Right. So that's a good point that the towns can submit amendments. Secondly, you want the 5-year review, if I'm following this correctly. The advisory committee looks at the agreement, but there isn't an obligation to amend the agreement every 5 years. It's a 5-year review. And then every 10 years, there is also an option to review it.
An obligation to review.
An
every
obligation. So 5 years, you may review it. 10 years, you have to review it.
Right. And so Carter's question is, can the school committee do that on their own, or should there be a committee like you are, like we have right here now?
Well, we've got language in there, Mac, about appointing an advisory committee.
It's
Right.
it's the and or piece. If it shall review and appoint, that's fine. My question goes away.
Yeah, and I don't know why we need the word itself either. I don't understand that. So it's up to the committee, but it could simply read the committee shall appoint an advisory committee every 10 years. Yeah.
My thoughts on this is to delete what's in green. That gives the basis for this committee being in existence anyway. It also puts some fresh set of eyes on the agreement, because undoubtedly in the year 2030, a number of people here will not be sitting in these seats.
Yep.
But somebody can look at this document and say, what were they thinking? Or, hey, that was a great idea, let's continue it.
And before we move forward, I just want to ask Anne Marie or maybe Hank, do you know in the past, have there been times when the committee reviewed it itself, or has it always been an advisory committee?
It was an advisory committee convened in 2013. I was on it, but we did not come to any conclusions. It fell apart when one of the members had been recalled and replaced, and it's never met again from then.
Right.
So
Yeah.
especially going through this process with the professional advice, we really needed it at this point because it had been so long since the existing one had been approved. I'm just concerned with the cost. If we were thinking we had to do that every 5 or even every 10 years, would that be absolutely necessary? Again, if no issues come up in the meantime that we know of.
Yeah.
Right. The advisory committee can recommend, if things are just going swimmingly, that there are no changes. They
Yeah.
can recommend that to the school committee.
That would be similar to if the school committee just reviewed it themselves. So if they just looked at it and there weren't any huge questions, and they could just approve it and move along, or make slight adjustments. So, actually, you know what? I guess what I'm looking at, I would like to get a consensus on this to see how we want to go with that. Yeah, I'd just like to get a consensus on whether or not we can remove the highlighted green. So it would just read, committee shall appoint an advisory committee to study the recommended amendments.
And then other than that, it would be Carter's suggested language. right?
Correct, yes. So I guess to do that, you know, just like, is there anybody that is opposed to doing that, to removing the green? Let's just start with that. I don't see anything. So if we can we just modify, yeah, let's just. And we can just go with the motion on the floor that Carter had already made a motion for, correct? And actually, I got a second on that from Gerhard, didn't I?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I did subsequently accept the friendlies amendment, the beginning in 2030, I believe, Jeff.
Yes. I think Matt got that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yep. So with that, in seeing no further discussion, I will go for a roll call vote. Sheila. Oh, did somebody say no? Sheila.
Yes.
Tim.
Yes.
Carter.
Yes,
Christine.
Yes.
Thank you. Gerhard.
Yes.
Hank.
Aye.
And Mr. Mark says aye.
Great.
Jeff, my
Yes.
apologies. I hate to do this, but I'm going to make you lose your quorum here momentarily. I have a 7 PM select board meeting I have to get signed in for.
Can I just mention, at the beginning, I said we had a recommendation for where to go next. Our recommendation that Jay and I have talked about is not have a meeting in August, have a meeting, the next meeting be in September, and be an in-person meeting, and wrestle with Section 6 about the apportionment, because that seems to be the issue that your communities are struggling with a little bit, and even on this committee, it's going to take some discussion. So our thought is that we get together in person and see if we can come to some consensus on Section 6. Would that be acceptable to people?
Provided we can do some sort of poll as to potential meeting nights, because starting in
Yeah.
September, I've got finance committee, select board, I've capital, I've got, Mac, and the town, got lots of committees.
All right.
I think
We all have the normal and ordinary process that really kicks off after Labor Day.
Chris, can Susan send out a?
Well, I was just gonna say, what I'd recommend to the committee is that Susan send out what we call a doodle poll, which is, a host of dates, obviously, and then people pick what they can make, and then we base,
lock 'em in.
from there. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you, Chris. Before we move on, Sheila, do you have a question or a comment? I see your hand is up.
The comment I was going to make is that I think, and I know that summer is tougher, but I think that we have struggled to get a quorum, and I'm not sure that switching to an in-person is going to help us with that issue.
Well, that could also be part of the doodle.
I was going to say that. Yeah, Sheila, why don't we, when we have Susan send that out, Sheila, we'll just see, we'll just ask that question as well. If we can get an in-person, great. If not, then we will go to a virtual meeting. Okay, then we'll continue a virtual meeting. Okay. So we are going to stop there, I believe. There was nothing else on there, and we don't have another meeting scheduled. Okay. So unless there is anything else, which I don't believe there is, I am looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second,
Okay. All right, thank you. So, and we will do a vote on that. Sheila,
Yes.
Tim,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Christine.
I'm sorry, is there any way to ask a question at this point?
Yeah,
Because it
abs-
affects the next meeting.
Uh,
What about
no.
the answer to who's going to replace the missing members and when we'll have that answer from the school committee?
I can, I think hopefully I said this earlier, I don't remember the date of our next school
Okay.
committee meeting. I know it's in August,
Yeah.
but that'll be an agenda item for them,
Yes.
for their discussion. So they'll find out in August before September, right?
Okay,
Before
thank
the
you.
meeting. in September.
Yes.
And yes,
Okay, Christine. Christine, did I get your vote for the,
adjournment, yes.
thank you, yes. Gerhard,
Yes.
Hank,
aye.
and Mr. Mark says yes. I would thank you all.
Thank you. We got a lot done tonight.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Good
Okay,
night,
thank
folks.
you, everyone.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.